Wow, you got that switch pretty quickly. Hey, Bill.
I, all I know is
Hey
one
guys,
thing. I can't get into my retirement money. I can't get into my people's.
There you go. It's not your money anymore, Don. It's
I
Elon.
know it's gone. I know it's not my
Elon's
money
money
anymore.
now.
I know they took my money, man.
I think that's because
Elon's money
someone
now.
from the previous administration approved a whole lot of printing of money. And so your money's worth a whole lot less now.
Hey,
Yeah,
Bill, can
That's
you
it,
put
Joe. That's why.
Hey, Bill,
That's it.
can you put on
All
address you're replacing our one female that we had on the panel?
Okay.
alrighty.
Wow, we're gonna put
I'll
something in
try right
address.
quick.
Okay. I'm gonna talk about
I
that
know there
later.
was
First,
more.
I have to mute us from the Zoom call because we don't want the Zoom call's voice to be on the show. 1, 2. Okay, someone from the Zoom call say something really loud.
Check.
Hello?
Oh,
Good.
Hey.
Hello?
Okay, we couldn't hear you. That's awesome.
awesome.
Can you all still hear us? Wave your arms
Yes,
if you can hear
yes.
us. There you go. We can still hear us. So that's good. Okay, I think we're ready.
Hey,
to rock.
just want to give, can I give,
Please. Oh, you sound great, Bill. Can you hear us okay? You're sounding good.
Let's hope everything works smoothly and stays running. We all ready?
Why not?
Let's see. Who do I have? I have Donald Thomas, Ted Johnson, Bill Russell, and Ramon Nunez. I can pronounce all those.
Nunez.
Nunez?
Yes.
Nunez.
Nunez. Is that spelled right, Ramon?
It's spelled right. You're good. Oh,
Okay.
by the way, hey, Joe.
Is it Nunez?
It is Nunez.
Okay, you're trying to mess me up, Bob. Hold
No,
on.
I'm not. I said Nunez.
Is it
He's my
Nunez?
friend. I know how to pronounce his name.
Okay.
And it's Ramon. Right. So can you tell them about you got to be on camera. Tell them that one.
Oh,
Because they've forgotten.
well, these are all normal people, but we'll tell them.
But
If you're not on the screen, if you talk, no one can hear you. The audience can't hear you. So it's important. And if we're going to do like this, if I do this, that means I want whoever was talking, I want the other one to interrupt soon. And then if I do this, that means interrupt now. So if I lay out this is normal because we're just talking, it's a layover and then so forth. But if I turn around and do this, that means Ted's talking. I want Bill to interrupt him in just about 5, 4, 3, 2. Hey, interrupt them now. And so that's the idea of putting that on there to have some sort of conflict back and forth rather than a bunch of kumbaya.
So when it's like that camera with only 2 people on, the other 2 people could say anything and it won't be recorded. So just remember that. You got to be seen.
Any questions?
Good. Ready?
Yeah, take that as either they all have no questions or no one can hear me.
Yeah. All right. Let's go. Let's do
Okay,
this
video
thing.
timer's on. Audio timer's on. 3, 2. This is Joe Boy with WJJ102jams.com recording Third Side Convo. Starting in 3,
Never mind.
2. Welcome to Third Side Convo with your host, Bob Phipps. Your panelists today are Donald Thomas, Ted Johnson, Bill Russell, and Ramon Nunez. And now, your host, Bob Phipps.
Welcome everybody. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI,
Hey, no,
has
we're
been
good
a
exclusively
defining
for
workplace
white folks.
initiative over the last decade, aimed at creating opportunities for employees of all backgrounds to thrive. Supporters argue that DEI
Retired
helps
hitman,
correct
yes.
systematic barriers and unlocks innovation by bringing different perspectives into the workplace. However, critics contend that DEI can lead to preferential treatment based on identity rather than merit, sometimes at the expense of fairness and legal compliance. Recently, we've seen corporations quietly scale back their DEI programs, and with the new administration, there are political and legal challenges ahead. Does this signal the end of DEI or an evolution into something new, or is it simply a course correction? Now, some argue that DEI strayed too far from its original purpose, creating unintended consequences that undermine fairness and efficiency. Others believe that backlash is more about politics than policy. with critics using DEI as a scapegoat for deeper cultural divides. So let's start with this. What is happening? Is DEI being dismantled because it was flawed? Or is this just a political backlash? I know where I want to start with this one, and that is Ted Johnson.
I think the uproar over DEI coming out of Washington D.C. by a certain elected official is a ruse. I think it's a way to divide us. I think it's meant to focus pressure on people who feel left out, that their place was taken by someone else who's less talented and less qualified, which I think is all BS. And I think that basically DEI all wanted to do was raise awareness about the diversity and the needs of a multitude of people, cultures, religions, on and on and on. And it was just trying to get us all to accept each other for what we are.
All right. Ramon Nunez, what would be your thoughts on your opening thoughts on this?
I think that DEI programs probably start from a good place, wanting to cultivate everybody's talents. I remember history lessons during World War II, how the Navajo language was used to foil the Axis powers. I think that that's a strength in America. I think also that sometimes big government gets things wrong and maybe the implementation wasn't right. So I think that this is a pushback and maybe it is a diversion tactic.
Well, I think everybody has mostly good intentions at heart. That's what we need to find out. Don, what do you see as the DEI changes that are happening now?
Well, I say it was used as lately. It's used as a political weapon, and it's been used to go online with the Project 25 agenda, and it used for people who don't understand what DEI is, and it was used to use those people and get a momentum to go against it. And like most people have no idea what it means in the certain arenas that who are ignorant to the fact of politics and everything else. They don't know what it is, and so certain groups use those to get people to vote for them.
All right, Bill, is this a political overreach?
I wouldn't say it's political overreach, but it's certainly long overdue. DEI at its fundamental level was highly misguided, and it essentially replaced what when Martin Luther King said, "Let us be judged by the content of our character and not the color of our skin." DEI had the exact opposite effect and ultimately undermined everything it said it was trying to accomplish. And it actually increased the resentments that people felt, both those who were receiving the benefits of it and those who were discriminated against by it.
Give me an example. One example, Bill.
What?
Of either someone who resented that they got it or didn't get it. What did they resent? And who was it? And where was it?
I can use a great example. I attended an HBCU law school. Now, attending a historically Black university or college law school, it was promoted. It was ingrained into the curriculum. And just as an example, I will say my con law teacher, she was far more interested in raising social justice warriors, promoting DEI, as opposed to constitutional scholars and upholding the principles of the Constitution that give us all our rights.
Is that a bad thing?
And I guess we'll just have to take his word for it.
Because it was
back in your day,
focus on the sole focus on social justice, being a social justice warrior, as opposed to understanding the Constitution and the rights it gives us and how our rights are given to us under the Constitution, or guaranteed by the Constitution, I should say, was to the detriment of everybody. And all it did was increase resentment on the part of those who it was aimed against and those who benefit from it.
Okay, Don.
In the 70s, and there was a bilateral reaction. People who lost out on jobs because they were white thought they lost it because the other person was Black. Some people who were Black or Hispanic, whatever the case may be, female, sometimes they were said to be underqualified. And I think a lot of that was a ruse. And again, you wouldn't be there or functioning in the job unless you're qualified and to get the job. By and large, people don't hire malfunctioning, underperforming people. They don't keep them around very long in the corporate world.
Not at all.
You certainly see it in government.
Well, you got a specific example?
The government is still 65% of the government is actually a group of one color of people, you know? And then the DEI came in got to level the playing field a little bit with everybody who are being excluded, because there's been a big push, and still right now it's being pushed more, that if you ain't a certain group or you don't look a certain way, you can't come work for us. And it was really back in the 60s and 70s that was really implemented, and people were being discriminated against because they looked a certain way, or they had a disability, or they was ugly, and they were discriminated against. And this is what DEI was trying to change that, you know.
And Bill, you gave me an example of a law school. You didn't tell me how these people performed in their jobs and then went on after school. You didn't give me any examples of how they fired up something and they got the job because they were of color or of gender, as opposed to something.
Yeah, if they were women, disabled, or didn't look a certain way, they were discriminated against. And DEI came in into, let's look at something here, because it's not just color; it's just people with disabilities and people who have problems. You know.
You know what I think, guys, is that these DEI programs probably were designed to fix a real problem, and probably to make companies maybe more competitive, and to give them the opportunity to appeal to a broader market. I think every organization probably wants to harness all the talent that they can, and they call it human resources because we see people as a resource that we can optimize. I think a problem can be in implementation, and I've been in organizations where they bore you to death with terrible long seminars, and we could probably debate, are these seminars necessary, or is this the best way to do it? Like, in a world where not every kid has access to quality education, maybe the solution of making adults that already have a degree go to these programs, or to enforce certain quotas, may be a problem, a solution too late. Instead of taking a medicine, what about curing the disease early on and fixing education? So maybe
right now, what's happening right now, people want to cry about, you're putting people inside the government right now who are not even qualified. So the DEI that they're arguing for is out the window, because they got people right now going into our government right now, the top field. I feel like these people are not qualified to even be in the jobs, but they're doing it because of certain favoritism. It's all coming back, and that DEI just thrown out the window. You got billionaires in place of average working people. So they got more billionaires trying to tell a young man or somebody who's a marginal worker trying to relate to him. We can't relate to them,
I think a criticism of DEI by people that oppose it and is that because of somebody's background, you take an unqualified person and put them into a role. I think that that's a popular criticism. I think that when implemented right, what DEI looks like is that you harness the talent of everybody, especially people that historically the school systems have failed. And if you look at where people live, unfortunately, certain people in this country, most of them are in minority groups, live in geographic areas where the education systems don't have as good of a track record. And you could look at a bunch of reasons to explain this. History is one of them, family structure, economics, resources. I think that maybe a problem with the implementation of these policies is that they come a little bit too late. They probably come from a good place, and they probably, historically have led to some problems, and also to some of our biggest and best moments as a nation.
Well, let's see where we go next with this. Bill, we'll come to you right at the start of the next segment, but we'll go on and tackle that next. I mean, we're not going to be able to handle all of DEI in one 30-minute show. Please subscribe on Facebook. thirdsideconvo.com. Check us out, watch the videos, and get involved, as we're just regular people trying to get together on a topic. We'll be right back after our word from our sponsors.
Aw, Dad.
I like where Don was going, where it's almost like billionaires in government are a form of DEI. Like you can only be in government if you're a billionaire.
Well, it depends what club, right?
Yeah. Are you a tech bro? Are
Yeah.
you know, it's I mean, it's telling that you know, the Trump administration did not put any of the people of color who worked hard to get him elected and kissed the ring, didn't put any of them in the cabinet, just jettisoned them 1 second after the election. Fuck you, don't need you, bring on the white guy billionaires. My God, he doesn't give a shit about his voters.
Yeah,
Okay, so what's next for DEI? I mean, obviously there
Okay,
are
he's not
complaints
talking
on
about us,
one
right?
side. There's other people that strongly believe in it. What if the best approach isn't about quotas or hiring policies? Ramon mentioned, what about giving students, you know, the right tools to succeed? So if DEI is fading, what should take its place?
I
Ted,
think leadership is hard. And I think that what good leadership looks like is when you bring people together to find a solution, you know, that works for the benefit of everybody. And maybe an opportunity is to not pit people against each other and not focus on their past grievances. So it's wrong when something bad happens to me and I assume that it happened because this guy is racist, you know, because I'm not Caucasian. It's also wrong when I'm going to go and perform somebody's life-saving surgery that they forget or they assume that because I'm not white that I wasn't the
like
of my class.
like the plane crash, right? Like the guy accused of the plane crash.
You know, when I was in college, you know what grade I got in physics? I got 100%, meaning for the entire academic year, I got 100% on every single physics assignment. And so, you know, you could assume that maybe because there was a DEI program that happened that I was not qualified. You know, and I think that is a popular criticism of DEI, that somebody gets a position because of what they look like and not because of their skill set. And I could also assume if something bad happens to me, that it's because, oh, that police officer is racist. But what good leadership it looks like is if we stop pitting people against each other and we just all assume benevolence on the part of the other guy. Like, let's assume that the other guy is a good person and give him a little grace.
You're making a lot of sense, Ramon.
It should be that way. It should be that way, but it's not, because our head people that's on TV screens and everything every day telling people that it is different, that they're discriminating. You're getting up front of a tragic thing or something happens or something like that. You're supposed to have sympathy for somebody, and somebody gets up on the screen and without any proof or anything. I mean, it happens all the time, and saying stuff that's not even true. A lot of times we don't even think about it because people believe it because of what they hear and not what they see, and or what the facts are. And that's the problem with DEI. So people don't know what the facts are. They believe what anybody's telling them instead of going back and looking at the facts.
Well, yeah, we can open that can of worms by asking people to define the term woke. What woke means for them. What is that? You know, we'll be here for days. Keep going.
Yeah, that's a good talking point. That talking point is there. You're right about that. Bill, what do we replace it with? Don't you agree that there have been systematic issues over the years? And obviously, I guess Sandra Day O'Connor came out, you know, Supreme Court Justice came out in 1975 saying, you know, we won't need affirmative action forever.
Yeah, I think Senator Day O'Connor was correct. What we need to replace DEI with is straight up meritocracy. And the way it gets implemented, and Ted had asked earlier for a specific example, and the best example I can give of the way it's implemented on a systematic level was in the promotion process in the Army. Initially, what they did was when they would take officers, they would rank file them by their performance based on their OERs, and their overall performance over the course of their careers, and give a straight meritocracy rank rank structure for it. What would then happen is under the EEO programs and now with the DEI, they would look at that merit list and they say, well, there's not enough people that belong to the certain categories, and they would start bumping off better qualified people who were not part of a minority or race, and they would bump those people out to promote lesser qualified people who did not have the performance ratings, did not have the education, did not have and that was the way it implemented.
Bullshit.
These are people that were working on, I got this directly from people who sat on the boards.
And the system
And
you're
so, and I can tell you
describing
that over the course of
benefits people who know how to
over the course of
game
my
the
career,
system.
I did experience highly qualified officers who I thought the world of, who were of every race minority.
Just like you.
Several, and I knew, unfortunately, perhaps too many, who gave credence to the fact or gave credence to that perception that less qualified people got promoted and were in their position solely because they were a minority or female.
Yeah.
Ted, you've
Wow.
heard that.
How much of that is perception?
I-
How much is that reality, the actual performance of their job? I mean, there's a lot of extras. And I grew up with affirmative action. I watched people complain about a friend of mine said she didn't get a UCLA nursing school because some black person got it. You know what? That woman could go to some other school and get in a nursing school. She just didn't get into UCLA's nursing school. So the options seem to be a little bit better. And also certain
So she got discriminated against.
like certain businesses have more minority focused hiring. And yes, they do. It might take less people who have higher scores, but that doesn't mean they're not talented people. To say that they're less qualified it's very close, Bill, to saying you're not good enough because you're X, whether you Hispanic, the way you speak, your gender, whatever. A lot of it has to do is watch them after a year. Do they get up to speed and they do the job? That's another issue.
I'm talking about people that were. I'm talking about some people that I saw along the course of my career who were absolutely incompetent,
and they shouldn't last.
Unfortunately, they got promoted.
I wonder if they're on a podcast right now saying I was with this guy Bill who was incompetent.
I don't know.
It's still skewed numbers because we look at how the country and how states are. Like, for example, here in Florida, 48% of the criminals are African Americans, and they only make up 17% of the state. Or nationwide, it's 38%, when they make up 13 to 14% of the states. So numbers, sometimes people are put in. I'm not using that as an example, but some people are discriminated against across the board because they look a certain way, and DEI was supposed to kind of put that in place. But there's people in the Army, and there's something in the Army. There's a lot of guys going to the Army and didn't get promoted that deserve to get promoted, and they never did because of what's the stuff that's been going on for years, and it's still been going on.
Well, let me ask all of y'all just a short answer: Is DEI a form of reverse racism?
No,
Ramon?
Yes.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Not in and of itself.
Okay.
I think it could be implemented correctly or incorrectly.
Okay. Ted?
Reverse racism. Wow. That means whites don't get the job like they thought they should get because they're white. Is that what reverse racism means?
That's what people have said.
Yeah, there you go. Wow, they didn't get it. It only happened for 200 years for certain African Americans not being able to get jobs because they were, black. Okay. No, I think there's also an attempt on a democracy in very sloppy ways, as well as very general over time, takes a long time, 30, 40, 50 years, to fully integrate and get people on a overall social balanced way of life. Takes a long time. There are a lot of missteps, a lot of cracks in the area. This fell through, corruption shows up. So no, it's a good attempt. Is it executed perfectly? Of course not. We're a democracy. What do we execute perfectly besides a moonshot on Apollo 11? There you go.
Well, no, I thought Apollo 13 was a much bigger deal, bringing them all back safely. That was unbelievable.
And it wasn't perfect. Apollo 1 was a disaster.
That movie that they're not going to make it back.
Right.
Yeah, I like Ocean's 11.
It still can't be racism
Rest in
because
peace,
there's
Gus
also
Grissom.
people who are disabilities and people who are it's not just race. It's also people who have problems, who are disabilities, who have things that they can contribute to society, and they're being discriminated against because people can't see because they have a missing limb, or they have a bad eye, or a family that can't work because he has PSD from an army. He can only work so many days. So
Right.
DEI cannot be race or a race thing anyway, because it includes a lot of other people besides the color of your skin.
Well,
Right.
I read something here. It said critics said DEI lowers standards, but history shows that inclusion efforts such as integrating Ivy League schools, Major League Baseball, and the military led to major progress. Why is today's DEI different?
Because somebody's attacking it as a way to separate ourselves. Nobody else.
Exactly. Bingo.
It was a marketing ploy by a certain presidential candidate, and it worked.
That's right. Someone using it as a weapon to divide people, and he's got those people on his side.
Nobody's, standing up saying, "Isn't this great? We're doing this. It takes progress. We're making progress on this. Isn't this great?" No, they're not saying that. They're saying,
exactly.
"Oh, this, that. He got in because he's Hispanic." Or
Joe Boy showed me a video. Yeah, Joe Boy showed me a video on Tuesday, and it was this video of University of Florida interviewing their students, as to the whole DEI thing. And they're like, and all the students are like, yeah, we're all for DEI. And then they said, well, what about for the football team? So they showed a picture of this is the way the football team, you'd have like 4 Asians, on the offensive line. And they're like, well, not for the football team.
That doesn't work, Bob. That doesn't work at all, because you're not comparing people.
It does work.
You're comparing people on physical size, physical speed, and you're not comparing them on how their mental thoughts. You can have a woman who's 5'2" and 107 pounds sitting next to a person like Bill of a different stature and everything, different background, and they can compete on different levels intellectually and academically, but they cannot compete on an athletic field. That's a bad comparison.
And she can be
it's also the way
sports was for a very long time.
Or he could be air traffic controller. They could be 3 feet tall. They can get up on a screen, sit up in a chair, and read a radar screen and get trained. They can do the same job as a 6-foot radar screen guy.
You need to be 6'5", 325 to design a nuclear reactor for the submarines? No, you don't need to be that.
You don't
need to be someone who knows how to design nuclear reactors.
We're going to go ahead and take our next break.
Exactly.
And then what we're going to do, Bill, hold on.
You're right.
I'm going to talk about an idea. Ramon actually touched on it. So after the break,
as just picturing a big Samoan guy in the back of a submarine.
DEI money's in the right place on where some efforts ought to be put. So again, subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, and thirdsideconvo.com. And we'll be right back.
Corona Cigar Company is
I feel that Bill sees the world through his preconceived notion and fits every anecdote into that prism.
Yeah. It's
like if you see DEI problems everywhere you go in life, maybe the problem's you, dude.
Yeah. I mean, there are extremes on everything, but to just have a blanket view, right? I think it's, we keep talking about qualified people. I mean, I'm training carpenters, laborers how to paint, like try to scenically paint. Like I see industries, and not just our industry, but all over, just suffering. So that's why I think this DEI will be out the window. It'll be like anybody that has.
We got a couple of places to go with this. We certainly could talk about: is it about meritocracy? Is it about?
I mean, I know
fairness, and it's clearly all of those things. And Ramon, I think, said it really well when he said that that
and it's
everybody wants to have a fair system. Okay, Bill doesn't think it is fair. Ted thinks it is, but let me give you an area that. What? No. That the idea of DEI is. Can I say that?
It's a good effort. I didn't say it's fair. What they're trying to do is a good idea. Keep going.
So how do we need to change it? I'd like to see it focused on young people. And I've talked to a couple of y'all about this, that there's a, situation where there's some public schools in Baltimore whereby, 20% of them aren't even at grade level. In fact, actually it's 77% aren't at grade level in various schools there. And I'm sitting here going, that's just horrible. I mean, we're doing such a bad job, I think, with our educational system, and we probably need to have a whole show on this thing. But would that be a good place to focus? Ramon, you kind of said that, right? That young people, we ought to start this whole concept with young people, right?
I think that our education system is definitely an opportunity. I think that if you limit your approach to young people, you may not have the results you want, because young people are a function of their families.
Yeah.
And many families in this country, unfortunately, are broken and untethered. And so I think that in order to be successful, you got to also include people that are maybe in that gap between age 22 to 30, because at least at that age you're kind of self-sufficient. I think that the gentleman with the beard, forgive me for not remembering your name, mentioned
I used to play basketball.
I think that Mr. Russell mentioned some experiences in the Army. I would like to see young people get an opportunity to serve in the armed forces or something similar. I think that a lot of opportunities there can overlap with some other national initiatives. I think that service is something that makes people strong, and so I think that focusing on age 30 and lower is something that can help.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. All right, Don, final
Ramon's
thoughts
spitting
to
facts
the end
tonight.
here.
Oh, well, my
How's
thing is,
it going to change? What is
Ramon
going to
is a
happen?
wise man.
I can see this. I get back to a system of when you turn before you turn when you turn 18, there should be like a choice where you either get a job with trades and stuff, you work it, either go to college, go to school, or go to the military. And for those 3 years, you're only allowed to make so much money, and like an apprentice program for everywhere like that. And once you complete those things, you can, and then all your stuff, all your education stuff can be put inside there to learn how America works and how to be fair to everybody else. So if we can get to a system like that, it'd be awesome.
Ted, where do you see DEI going?
I think DEI should continue because it's just an awareness program of what the sensitivities as well as insights into different cultures and different ways of being. It's not anything that can hinder America as much as bring more people into the room and everybody feel like they belong to something and they feel part of a collective. And I think that's what's missing in America.
Well, definitely bringing people together would help with all DEI also, because people need to talk. People need to get together. Bill, your final thoughts. Got 20 seconds.
And not on Facebook.
Ultimately, we want it to go
In person,
where
right?
whenever somebody's sitting in the room and sitting at the table, you look across and you know that person is qualified and they have all the due respect of having been qualified to get there, regardless of where they came from in their background. We all want to get an equal shake. And unfortunately, DEI has just been the absolute wrong vehicle. It has taken us in the exact opposite direction it was intended to. And that's why it needs to go away. And we need to get back to meritocracy.
Come on to Silicon Valley and check all those Indian engineers coming over. Let me know if you think DEI is okay.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, let me know if you think all those Chinese business.
This is one of those shows. We're wrapping it up, guys. We've got our show tonight, and I knew we were going to have some fun on this one, and I knew that we weren't necessarily going to find agreement other than the basic tenets of DEI we would like to see in that inclusion. You know, that diversity can be a good thing. And that's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to come with. And now we've got the after shows coming up after this. But first, we're going to just thank you all for being here. And we will see you again next week on Third Side Convo.